how I got my software engineering internship. So I'm going to talk about the projects that I had on my GitHub, the application process, the interview prep that I did, the actual interview, and then what happened after the interview. So first, the projects I had on my GitHub. So I had 4 projects. I'm going to go through them from the smallest to the biggest. Okay, the smallest project that I had was a file organizer. So this is just a script to sort the files that are in my download folder, so that every time when I download something, it sorts it by videos, PNGs, what else, PDFs, stuff like that. So every time when I download something, it puts it in its correct folder so that everything is organized, and that's it. Yeah, this was just a simple program. It took me like an hour, didn't take that much time, with the help of Google. Next, we have a parking lot simulator. This is just a Java program that I created out of my own interest. I just wanted to see like if I could simulate what happens inside a parking lot using Java. So basically what it is it's a bunch of threads, right? Threads, each car is a thread that's created. Every time a new car is created, every time a new thread is created, and then it comes into the parking lot. And then based on whether the parking lot has space or not, the car can take a parking space, or it has to wait for all the other threads to finish their job and leave. And then it just continues like that. So yeah, and that took me, I don't know, like about 2 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours, because I was still learning. Like I just wanted to refresh my memory about threads. I'd forgotten about them a little bit. So I just wanted to do it as a little exercise, and yeah, just decided to put that on my GitHub because it was interesting. Next, we have the Alphabet Book Android app. This was an assignment in second year, I think. We just had to create a simple alphabet book for kids using Kotlin and Android Studio. So yeah, it's a basic application. It's basically a book, letter next to the picture, like an apple and the letter A. And then you can flip through it, and there's some intricacies to it, like when you close the app and you come back to it, it should be open on that same page. But yeah, other than that, it's a pretty simple page. Did it in Kotlin. And yeah, I decided that would be a good thing to put on my GitHub. Yeah. And then that's it. Unfortunately, I can't show the visual thing, because I don't have the files anymore. But that about explains everything. The last project, which is my biggest project on my GitHub, this was my capstone that I did in third year. It's a full stack. For those who don't know what a capstone project is, it's basically a full stack project, a full application, and it is usually done in your last year of study. So yeah, this app, as you can see here, it's called D-School Dashboard. So I studied at UCT, and they basically asked us to build this app for one of their buildings called D-School. So the background of the application is that building is an eco-friendly building, and they save electricity, they save water and all that. So we needed to build an app to display on their big screen to show how much water, how much electricity they're saving. And luckily, I have a video of this one, so I'll display it right here. And this was built using Python, Flask, and React. I would say this was one of the most complex projects that I've built, because I'd never built a full stack web application. The Android application was full stack, but it didn't feel like a full stack application. This one was really, it felt like I was building something, because I was working in a group and we were using GitHub together. That was the first time I actually used GitHub in a team to update our stuff at the same time, like working together using Git. So that was like a good project, gave me a lot of experience, and I knew that would probably put me up the ranks in applications. So yeah, and yeah, that's it. Those are all my projects. I would actually recommend having more projects than this. For me, with these projects, some of them are way too small. Like this file organizer took me an hour. The parking lot simulator didn't take me long. It's not really a big project. I would recommend you have more real life projects, like maybe a website for business or something like that would show your experience more and show that like you can make real problem solving applications. If I were to guess what got me my internship, it would be the D-School application. Other than that, yeah, I'd recommend you have more projects, more solid projects. Most people like to do apps and weather apps and all that, but everyone is doing that. So if everyone is doing it, then nothing's gonna set you aside. So you're just gonna look like everyone else. So that's why I recommend you make something real, like a website for a business or something that you use like every day. So you can see like this is a real application with a real functionality. Parking lot simulator, you wouldn't use that anyway, but I just made it for fun. Next, we're gonna talk about the application process. So I got my internship on LinkedIn. I applied just like everyone else. The other platforms that I was using, Pnet, Indeed, Career24, but I got this specific internship on LinkedIn. What I would recommend for you to do on these platforms is to search for for the position that you want, and then set up job alerts so that every time that position comes up, every time a new position that meets that criteria is posted, you'll get an email so you can apply as soon as possible. Another important platform for developers is OfferZen. I haven't gotten on this one yet because when I applied, I got rejected because I hadn't graduated yet. And then by the time I graduated, I'd already gotten this internship, so never got the chance to apply to that, but I'm still gonna do it. So yeah, apply to that if you've graduated. It's a platform specifically for developers, so you know it's gonna be better than LinkedIn or Pnet or Indeed, any of these ones. Can't really say much about it because I haven't used it before, but I've heard good things about it from people. Next is the interview prep that I did. So what I did was practice for behavioral questions. These are questions like, tell me about a time where you were working in a group and you experienced conflict and how you solved it. It's very important to know how to answer those questions so they can see that you can work in a team, you can work effectively in a team. There's actually a method to answer these questions. Forgot what it's called, but I'll put the picture here. So yeah, you just follow those steps and you should be able to answer those questions properly. And also I went on ChatGPT to search what kind of behavioral questions a developer would get, but mostly they're just generic. They're not specific to developers. Just search behavioral questions for an internship interview and then you'll get all those questions and then just practice answering them. And you will find that some of those questions you get from ChatGPT, they'll ask in the interview, or they just ask something that you don't know, but because you practice, you'll be able to answer them. Next, you want to practice lead code questions. So you are going to get a technical interview where you have to code in front of the interviewers, and this is where lead code comes in. It helps you with your coding, problem solving skills, so just practicing every day should help you prepare for that. But there's one thing that I noticed: lead code questions are a bit scrambled around, so it's a bit difficult to learn properly by just clicking random questions. So I found this website called NeetCode, which arranges all the questions in a way that they'd teach you in university. Like you start with arrays and then you'd move on to more complex things until you get to dynamic programming and divide and conquer and graphs and all that stuff. So NeetCode is definitely the better option. It's not a separate thing. They basically take lead code questions and organize them. So when you click on NeetCode, it will link you to a lead code question. I'll put that in the description. The next thing I did was I watched mock interviews. So I was just trying to get some insight into how it goes when you're in an interview, like what kind of questions they ask. And I found this a really helpful video. I'll link it in the description as well. It's about an hour or an hour and a half. It's very detailed and they show how they examine you in a coding interview. Like they used Codebase in the video, which they also used in my interview. So yeah, that was cool. It's very detailed. Like they show you how you should communicate with, or at least the person being interviewed in that video. They communicate well with the interviewer. It was just a really good guideline for me. Lastly, I prepared questions that I wanted to ask the interviewers after the interview, but yeah, I'll reveal those a bit later in the video. Next, moving on to the interview. Mostly with software engineering positions, you get two interviews. There's the screening interview and then there's the technical interview. Screening is usually online and then technical is in person. But for me, both of them are online, so that was a bit better for me because I didn't have to leave the house. So in the screening interview, they just ask you basic questions about who you are, what your interests are, your hobbies. So they're just trying to get to know you. There are no hectic questions in the screening interview. It's just to see your personality, I guess, and just get to know you better. This lasted for about 15 minutes, and then it was done. And then afterwards, I got an invite to the technical interview. So with the technical interview, they asked me behavioral questions, those ones that I mentioned earlier in the video, and two coding questions. The coding questions were not that complex. I was actually surprised. I was expecting difficult stuff like maybe dynamic programming or, you know, something that has to do with efficiency, but they asked fairly simple questions. I would say there were first year level questions or second year level questions in between. Yeah, it wasn't that complex, but they did ask questions about that to see if you understood what you're doing. And yeah, that's it for the coding questions. It took about an hour or 45 minutes for both questions. After the coding questions, they just told me the background of their company, what they do, the products that they build, and all that stuff. And then we reached the end of the interview where I got to ask my questions. So the important thing about asking questions is you want to ask questions that let's show them that you're interested in what you're going to be doing so that they can see that you want the job. Here are the questions that I asked. Number 1, what tech stack and programming languages do you use? Number 2, can you tell me about the day-to-day responsibilities of the internship role? Number 3, how do you handle situations where a developer makes mistakes or encounters errors, and what steps do you take to help them get back on track? Number 4, what type of mentorship or support do interns usually receive? Number 5, is there a possibility of securing a permanent position after the internship? And then number 6, which I think is the most important, was I asked them for feedback based on my interview, how they think I did, and any constructive criticism on what I should improve. I think this is the most important because it gives you an idea of how the interview went so that you don't have to stress about whether you're going to hear from them or not. I mean, you're still going to think about it, but this gives you a more clear idea. The feedback is going to tell you if you did good or bad. And then lastly is what happened after the interview. I think a month later, I got an email saying I got the position. They asked me what my preferred start date is, and they needed to do background checks to check, I don't know if I had a criminal record, or I had to go to the post office to get my fingerprints submitted. So that was the first email. 2 weeks after that, I got a second email to say I got the internship. And yeah, that's it. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments because I need ideas for videos. I'm going to be posting a video about my first day at the internship. So you'll be seeing it on your screen right now if it's posted. If you can't see it, that means it's not out yet.